Hello, and welcome to the Look Up podcast. This is a new one for me. This is an interesting one. For me, it's about admitting one thing. It's about admitting that the very thing that I'm looking into right now, the very thing I'm using to communicate with the world, the very thing that's supposed to be a force for good, is a problem. My phone, the piece of glass and metal in my pocket, is a problem. It's one that I'm trying to get on. It's one that I'm trying to work through. It's one that I'm trying to understand. But I also understand that it's not only me that has this issue. Phone usage is up across the world. COVID is a period of time that forced a lot of people to have digital connections, to have digital friendships, relationships. Shopping no longer was an option, and all of a sudden we were forced to do online shopping. So our phones became much more than a phone. We had a smartphone, and it was a communicator. Steve Jobs in 2007 famously said that it was an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. But in the last few years, our smartphones have become so much more than that. What they have become is our pathway to the world. And it's very hard to say no to the pathway to the world in your pocket. Services like TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, these things engulf us. They engulf our entire day. And if anyone is listening to this, I would challenge you to go into the settings on your phone and check your screen time. If you believe that your screen time is not that high, check your other devices. How much time do you look at a screen in a day? How many hours are you conscious in a day? That question is what's led me to this. I am very lucky in the fact that I will soon be starting a new chapter in my working life. I moved to London about a year and a half ago, and I was working at a small company. And the benefit of a small company is you're not really forced to not look at your phone. It's sort of informal, it's easy, it's nice. Yes, you work long hours or whatever, and the job was hard and it was rewarding and everything, but at the very core of it, the small company mentality means that you don't need to look at your phone, or you don't need to feel bad for looking at your phone, excuse me. For anybody who's watching the video of this, will notice that I have a smartwatch on my wrist. Not only a smartwatch, but also a Whoop fitness band. I am someone who my entire life has been obsessed with technology, specifically personal technology and fitness technology and communication-based technology. I was someone who used to work in the phone space. I worked for a number of mobile networks and sold phones for a number of years because it was my passion. It was something I was incredibly passionate about, and I took a lot of pride in the fact that it was something that I worked with. I was speaking to phone companies who have these massive followings, and it was always so cool. But as I say, then COVID hit in 2020, and that cool thing in my pocket that I pulled out maybe 50 times a day became a lot more than that. It became a thing that partially dissolved a former relationship of mine. I looked at my phone too much. I was never there. I was never present. I was never around. And I find doing the same in my current relationship. I find myself in a room and the only thing I can think of is, well, there's a bit of information out there. I must go find it. Or how many likes did I get on that? Or how many... If I scroll, maybe I'll find the next cool thing to look at that I can talk about, and it's a topic of conversation. It becomes the conversation starter in my pocket. I will admit that whilst this is the first episode of Look Up, there will be more of these, and they will actually follow somewhat of a format. This is just me getting it out there. As a result, I don't have a script. I don't even have any pre-work. I just wanted to talk about and talk through the problem. As with some of the best anti-addiction philosophies in the world, the first step is admitting that you have an addiction. I am addicted to my phone. It's a problem. It really is a problem. The problem is that sometimes it isn't a problem. Sometimes the phone is the best thing I've got. Sometimes my social media is the best thing I've got. The job that I've just spoken about, that I'm so lucky to be able to get to start in central London, I wouldn't have without social media. I was approached through a social media platform. And then you justify it to yourself. You say, well, social media can't be a problem because it does good things for me. Look at the job I've got. It's justifying the problem. But as you can see, I'm sitting in front of here with my phone mounted on top of my laptop, ironically, so I don't look at it, recording what I say. And the entire premise of what I want to say is this: I want to look up. I want to enjoy the things that I've got because, as I'm sure most people do, I look around and see things changing in my life. And what I'm finding is that I'm missing it. I'm missing key moments. I'm missing key events because I'm not paying attention. We live in a society where more and more people are getting identified or diagnosed with attention disorders. We live in a society where more and more people are getting diagnosed with anxiety-based disorders. And there's a number of reasons, but I think a rather simple one is that we are not designed to live like this. I think one thing that everyone admits is that whilst it's normal now, it's not natural for us to always look at our phones. I remember there being a statistic recently that the average American unlocked their phone over 300 times a day and had over 5 hours of screen time. I could be wrong. I could just be spinning this off the top of my head, but it does bring to light the problem. That's a third of your waking day. You multiply that during the course of a year, and all of a sudden you find your time is wasting away. You don't really get a second shot at it. You get one chance. And I feel like if you asked anybody what they would do with their day, if they could design it, very few people would choose anything to do with their phone. They would say, I want to see my friends. They would say, I want to spend time with my family. I want to hear so-and-so laugh. I want to see that sight again. I want to do those things. I know, for example, for me, if I could design a day, I'd be in the middle of nowhere. And that's just it. We yearn for nothingness, but every day we reach out for as much information as we possibly can. We overload our brains from the second we wake up to the second we go to sleep. And then we wonder why we're so damn tired. We're mentally exhausted from the information we give ourselves. But we do it. It's like an addiction, right? And there is a reason that I use the word addiction, and I use it very, very meaningfully. We know it's bad for us. There are no concerns or questions or doubts about that fact. Extended phone use is not good for you. Extended social media use is not good for you. Yet we still do it. And I am saying this as someone who is wearing a smartwatch and tracks their fitness metrics and then wonders why they have a funny cough or why their heart has gone up maybe 2 BPM and maybe that's a problem. And you get anxious. I'm someone who values meaningful relationships and meaningful friendships. But the number of likes on a post still gets in my head. And I'm someone who turns around and, in contradiction to that, says that I'd rather have a small connection of people who cared. We live our lives in different hues every day. We live it in such contradictory ways. We say we want intimacy. We say we want closeness. We say we want real, meaningful relationships. But you sit across a table from someone that you haven't seen in years. 3-4 hours you're sitting with them. You really going to tell me that you're not pulling your phone out at some point to check something? Someone messages you, are you going to check it? Are you going to glance at your watch and see who it was? Of course you are. Because it could be an emergency, right? That's why we say it to ourselves. I keep it on me for emergencies. If someone rang me at 3 in the morning, I'd want to know. Yet most people have their phone on Do Not Disturb when they go to sleep. Another study off the top of my head, which I could have wrong, has it shown that over a third of couples in relationships check their phone during sex. The most intimate moment that you possibly could have with another human being. the most real moment, the most focused, defining, and demanding moment you've got, we look away. We reach out, we find something else, we do something else. And I fully appreciate that right now I could look like the ramblings of a madman. But that's what I want to set out. I want to know, am I insane? So across this podcast and across what I want to do with this is I want to ask that question. I want to ask what people do, and I want to ask if it's worth it. There are lots of people who don't use their phones in this way. But are they missing out on something? Is the FOMO, as we call it in today's world, this fear of missing out, is it real? Is it justified? Do we miss out if we don't use these things? As well as that, I do also endeavour to reach out to the other side of the argument, which is, well, what benefit does the phone bring you? You know, I've seen family members of mine who have had kids halfway around the world, and they FaceTime home and they show these new grandparents, these people who can't travel that far, their new grandchildren. And technology brings joy to our lives. It is, by definition, designed to improve our lives. If it didn't improve our lives at all, we wouldn't have it. It has to have value, but the question is the value worth the sacrifice? So that's what I want to do. Over the next number of episodes, I want to ask the question. There are a number of interesting guests lined up. And I'm putting this out there as almost a feeler to see if there's interest in this concept. The concept that maybe there is something to be said for just living our lives the way we were designed to. Or maybe there's something to be said for a hybrid approach, you know. Maybe we see that there's a problem, maybe we see that there's a solution, but maybe we pick and choose a bit of both and go, well, these things are actually quite good, but if we put these structures in place, we won't abuse them, we won't let them ruin or dictate or drive the way we live our lives. And that's what Look Up is. Asks the question, when do we look up and when do we look down? When do we let the phone rule our life? And when do we look up and enjoy the life we've got? Because it's the only one we're going to get. I don't know very many people that are going to lie on their deathbed and say, I'm really happy I got that Instagram post with that many likes. I'm really happy that I texted that person that one time instead of phoned them. Even in today's world, the world we look at is changing to a point that baffles me. If you ever want an example of this, look up the video where they get different generations to mime taking a photo. Kids these days and the new generation that are coming through. I say this as a 25-year-old, by the way. But they mime taking a photo as if they're holding a smartphone. The very definition of taking a photo for the last 150 years has just disappeared in the space of a decade. The world is moving so fast. We have AI implementations. We have our own data being used to advertise different products to us on a day-to-day basis. And this sounds like the stuff of conspiracy theories, but it's proven time and time and time again. These services have been set up like a slot machine to drive attention. They actually did use the very drives and benefits of slot machines. They used the mentality and the philosophy of gambling to see if the next time you check your phone, will you get a dopamine hit. It's a scary world we have, and it's a very scary world to think about. What's scarier to me is that it's so close at hand. So there's a lot of interesting guests lined up. And I could reveal them, but I'm going to keep them to myself for now. But like I said, I just want to put out a feeler and see maybe if you're as sick of this as I am. With no script, no preparation, just someone with a bit of a problem trying to fix it. I don't know. I look around and I wonder to myself that if, God forbid someday I'm lucky enough to have a kid, what kind of world is that kid going to grow up in? Even just in the next 10, 15 years. Because 15 years ago, smartphones were not big. People lived their lives the same way that they had for hundreds and hundreds of years. Back then, you couldn't have predicted this now. You couldn't have predicted that the world would move so fast. I remember having a Skype call in 2009, and it was like looking at someone through mayonnaise or Vaseline smeared over the camera. And we went, oh, well, that's never going to replace real life conversation. And now look, these things, you used to have a studio. I've got a smartphone stuck on top of my laptop. I've just hit record and started talking, and the world can see it as if they're in the room. It's weird. And what's even more weird in a way is that it's like I'm talking to myself. It used to be a sign of madness when I was growing up. Now it's normal. I live in one of the biggest cities on earth, but all of a sudden it's becoming lonelier and lonelier and more divided, and more people are looking through the lens in the back of the glass in their pocket. It's a fun world we have. Maybe we should look up for our phones. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should take the benefits of what it's got, but that's what I want to try and explore. And who knows? Maybe you might want to join me. Look forward to the next episodes.